Peace, peace. This your host, Selah Shalom, and this is the Cosmon Teachings in the words of Jehovah and his angel ambassadors from the Cosmon Bible. And the topic of discussion today is the book of Jehovah, chapters 4 through 6. Now, chapter 4, verse 1, it states, Man perceived the general formation of the world, and he prayed that his eyes might be opened for a sign in heaven. And Jehovah answered him, saying, verse 2, The clouds in the air I bring into view suddenly. By different currents of wind make I thus the unseen, visible, and tangible to man's senses. In like manner do I cause the Etherian currents to bring forth Aja, and Jaya, and Nebula, prior to making corporeal worlds. Verse 3, In all the universe have I made the unseen to rule over the seen. Let the formation of clouds stand in the view of man on earth, that he may bear witness to the manner of the unseen becoming seen. So for all those, like I said before in the first vid, that deny the unseen realities, believing that if I don't see it, it's not real. Well, here is showing you that the unseen controls everything that is seen. Verse 4, Man perceived and he prayed for a sign of duration. And Jehovah answered him, saying, verse 5, Behold the tree which hath sprung out of the ground and fulfilled its time. It falleth and rotteth and returneth to the earth. But lo, the wind which thou seest not never cease to blow. Even so is the comparative duration of all things. Think not, O man, that corporeal things are annihilated because they disappear. For as a drop of water evaporates and rises in the air as unseen vapor, so do all corporeal things, even earth, even stones, and gold, silver, and lead, become as nothing in the firmament of heaven in course of time. So here again is showing you that all physical matter precipitates into a vapor and rises in the atmosphere to its plateau. And these same vapors or particles of materials that rise are used among the spirits of the dead in those regions. Verse 6, Things that man seeth created I with the beginning and end, but the unseen I made of endless duration. Verse 7, The corporeal man made I belonging to the seen, but the spiritual man made I as one within the unseen and everlasting. So again, Jehovah is distinguishing the corporeal physical man from the spiritual man. Verse 8, As the corporeal man beholdeth corporeal things, so does the spiritual man follow upward the evaporated corporeal entities of things. As corporeal things are tangible to corporeans, so are is, which is spirit, things tangible to the spirits of the dead. So here again, Jehovah's giving you the description of the corporeal man and the spiritual man. Verse 9, As I cause water to rise upward as vapor and take a place in the air above, let it be a sign and testimony of other places in atmospheria, whereon dwell the spirits of the lower heavens. So here again, Jehovah's using an example of how water rises in the air as vapor and takes its place in the plateau. Likewise do the spirits of the dead rise in spirit to the plateau prepared for them. So here OAHSPE is showing you how life is proceeded after you die. Verse 10, As I made a limit to the ascent of the clouds, so made I a limit to the places of the different kinds of substances in atmospheria, the more subtile and potent to the extreme, and the more dense and impotent near to the earth. So the purest places are in the highest atmospherian regions, and the impure places where the stink and the stench of smelling things reside nearer to the earth. Verse 11, According to the conditions of these different plateaus and atmospheria, whether they be near the earth or high above, so shall the spirit of man take its place in the first heaven. According to his diet and desire and behavior, so shall he dwell in spirit on the plateau to which he hath adapted himself during his earth life. So here again, Jehovah's clarifying that according to these different plateaus in the atmosphere, and according to how you lived on earth, based off your desire, behavior, and diet, you will be placed in these different plateaus after you cross over. So if you're a heavy meat eater, indulging in flesh, when you cross over, your spirit will be bound to the earth or nearer to the earth in the atmospheric regions. or if not literally resting on the earth. But those who are more vegan, who don't eat flesh food, and purge themselves and purify their body with plant herbs, fruits, their spirits will be found more in the higher realms of the atmosphere, more in the purified realms of atmospheria. So here Jehovah's giving you these examples so there's no excuses when you cross over. You can prepare now while you're alive. Verse 12, for I made the power of attraction manifest in all things before man's eyes, that he may not err. That like should attract like made I them. Verse 13, man sought to know the progress of things. Jehovah answered him saying, verse 14, open thy eyes, O man. There is a time of childhood, a time of Genesis, a time of old age, a time of death to all men. Even so is it with all corporeal worlds I have created. So here in this verse, he's showing you how all things start off as young, then they begin to grow, become mid-age, then old, and then die. This is the process of all corporeal things. Now, this verse that I'm about to read next, verse 15, describes the 4 ages of a planet. Verse 15, first, as vapor, the vortex carry it forth, and as it condenses, its friction engenders heat, and it is molten, becoming as a globe of fire in heaven. Then it take its place as a newborn world, and I set in it the orbit prepared for it. Verse 16, in the next age I bring it into Simu, for it is ripe for the bringing forth of living creatures, and I bestow the vegetable and animal kingdoms. Verse 17, next it enters Hutu, for it has passed the age of begetting, even as the living who are in dotage. Next it enters Adu, and nothing can generate upon it. Then cometh Uz, and it is spirited away into the unseen realms. Thus create I, and thus dissipate planets, suns, moons, and stars. So here this verse 15 through 17 just gave you an example of how planetary bodies are created, inhabited, become desolate, and then annihilated to start over again. Verse 18, my examples are before all men. My witnesses are without number. I rise the tree up out of the ground. I give it a time to bring forth fruit, and then barrenness, and then death and dissolution. I prepare the new field with rich soil, bringing forth, and the old field that is exhausted, and man shall weigh the progress and destiny of a whole world. And see, this could be seen, this example that he just described can be seen with these 4 ages. How a planet is created, inhabited, becomes barren, and then becomes annihilated. Now, when you look at the planet, all the areas on the planet that are deserted, desert, that is a sign of planetary barrenness. That means the soils in those regions have been exhausted and used and cannot be used no more. So the Hara Desert, the deserts in the Arizona of America, these are examples of planetary barrenness. And we have only a small amount of time before the whole planet becomes barren, coinciding with these 4 ages. Now, verse 19, let no man marvel because of the size of the mammoth and the ichthyosaurus, for there was a time for them as there is a time for the infosora of this day. Verse 20, I have given thee a sign, O man, in the queen of the honeybee. Because of the change of the cell cometh she forth a queen, even from the same manner of germ as other bees. Be wise, therefore, and remember that the earth is not in the place of the firmament as of old. Let this be a sign and testimony to thee of the growth, the change, and the travel of the earth. Verse 21, nevertheless, O man, the seen and the unseen are but parts of my person. I am the unity of the whole. Chapter 5, verse 1, man perceiveth the magnitude and glory of the corporeal worlds. He said, how shall I speak of thy great works, O Jehovah, and of thy wisdom and power? Shall I open my mouth before thee? I look upon thy countless stars, suns, and moons, spread out over the heavens. The millions of years thou hast rolled them on in their never-ending firmament, processions in and out, and round about, of mighty worlds, by thy breath going forth. Verse 2, O thou all-highest, how shall I hide my insignificance? I cannot create the smallest thing alive, nor change the color of my hair on my head. What am I, that thou hast seen me? Verse 3, tell me, O my Creator, whence came life, this unseen within me that is conscious of being? Tell me how all the living came into life. Verse 4, Jehovah heard the words of man, And he answered him, saying, Let a sign be given to man that he may comprehend. Simu. Thereupon Jehovah caused the jellyfish and the green scum of water to be permanently coming forth in all ages, that man may understand the age of Simu, when the earth and the shores by the water, and the waters also, were covered over with commingled atmosphere and corporeal substance. And this substance was called Simu, because by Jehovah's presence quickened he it into life, and thus made he all the living, both the vegetable and the animal worlds. Not that Simu is jellyfish or green scum of water, for the earth in this day produced not Simu abundantly. Nevertheless, the jellyfish and the green scum of water are signs of that which was in that day of the earth. So here Jehovah is giving a brief description of the Simuan age, which is the first age, the time of creation. So in order to know how things were created, you would have to understand the first age, the age of Simu, the time of creation. And I explain these things in my book called The Timetables of Prophecy, and in plenty other documentaries on this site. Now, verse 5, Jehovah said, Because of my presence quicken I into life all that live or ever have lived. Verse 6, Because I am male and female, even in my likeness, thus made I them. Because I am the power to quicken into life, so in likeness of me, thus made I them, and with power to bring forth. So here you have Jehovah describing being male and female. So for all those who try to say Jehovah is a man or a he, here he's clarifying that he's both male and female, representing the masculine and feminine principles, not a man and a woman. Now, verse 7, According to their respective places created I the living, not in pairs only, but in hundreds of pairs, and thousands and millions. So when Jehovah created the lion, the bear, the monkey, he didn't create them in one pairs. He created them by the hundreds and thousands and even millions across the planet. Verse 8, According to their respective places and the light upon Simu, so quicken I them in their color adapted to their dwelling places. So according to the environment of your surroundings, your skin color has to do with that as well. So the more hotter regions, you're going to find more darker people. In the colder regions, you're going to find more lighter people. If you look at the Neanderthal and the Cro-Magnon man, they were more in the colder regions, so they have more pale skin. But when you look at the African, you find him in the hot region, and his skin is darker. Verse 9, Each and every living thing created I knew upon the earth, of a kind each to itself, and not one living thing created I out of another. This verse is contradicting the idea that everybody came out the loins of an African. Everybody was created after their own kind. So when creation was being created, he created the African, the Indian, the Chinaman, and any other races out there. Just like a banana tree can't produce an apple tree, the same rules would apply for the genealogy of man. Verse 10, Let a sign be upon the earth, that man in his darkness may not believe that one animal changes and become another. Likewise with the human race. You're not going to see an African come out of Africa, migrate to Asia, and then become a Chinese man. That's nonsense. Everything was created after their own kind. Verse 11, Thereupon Jehovah gave permission for different animals to bring forth a new living animal, which should be unlike either its mother or father, but he caused the new product to be barren. And this could be an example among an African who may interbred with a native Indian, and that offspring produces a new race on the planet, unlike his mother and father. Now, verse 12, Jehovah said, And this shall be a testimony before all men that I created each and all the living after their own kind. So he's verifying that everything was created according to their own kind. So like I say, an apple tree can't produce an orange tree. Everything created after its own kind. A lion can't produce a bear. So an African can't produce a Chinaman. They was already created after their own kind. Verse 13, Such is my person and my spirit, being from everlasting to everlasting. And when I bring a new world into the time of Simu, lo and behold, my presence quicketh the substance into life. According to the locality and the surroundings, so do I bring forth the different species, for they are flesh of my flesh, and spirit of my spirit. To themselves gave I themselves, nevertheless they are all members of my person. Verse 14, As a testimony to man, behold, the earth was once a globe of liquid fire, nor was there any seed thereon. But in due season I rained down Simu on the earth, and by virtue of my presence quickened I into life all the living. Without seed created I the life that is in them. So here Jehovah is giving you more clarification of his creation, of how things were created, the progress of the planet. Now, Book of Jehovah, chapter 6, verse 1, it states, "When man comprehended the earth, he looked upward, and Jehovah saw him, and knew the desire of his soul. So Jehovah sent his son, Uz, and Uz spoke, saying," verse 2, "Hear me, O man, the mysteries of heaven and earth will I clear up before thy judgment. Thou art the highest, and comest to the chiefest of all kingdoms. From great Jehovah shalt thou learn wisdom, and none shall gainsay thee." Verse 3, "Bethink thee, O man, of the magnitude of thy father's kingdom, and its places in the firmament. Except I take thee up to the heavens, thou cannot comprehend the places thereof." Verse 4, "Man then rose up in spirit, and ascended into the firmament, for his spirit had crystallized into separateness. And Uz and Is ascended with him, speaking in the voice of the Father. And man beheld that each and everything in the firmament was orderly and still meaning motionless, each to itself located. Then spoke Is, saying," so this verse describes how man ascended into the heavens, or to the atmosphere, to behold how all the minerals that created the earth are in the firmament, orderly and still. Verse 5, "Behold, O man, as a farmer soweth corn in one place, and wheat in another, and roots in another, and flax, everything in its separate place, even so doth Jehovah store the ingredients of which worlds are made, everything in its place, the substance of the iron in one place, the substance of the stones in another, the substance of the vegetable kingdom in another, and even so of the substance of the animal kingdom, and the oils, and sand. For he hath places in the firmament of heaven for all of them. These that thou saw are the Ajah, the Jaya, and the Nebula, and amidst them in places there is Simu also. Let no man say, yonder is hydrogen only, and yonder oxygen only. The divisions of the substance of his creation are not as man would make them. All the elements are to be found not only places near at hand, but in distant places also." So here this verse describes how every mineral represented on the physical scale is represented in the atmospheric scale, in particles or in gas form, and they're all located and placed in different areas, as he described as a farmer. As a farmer plants certain vegetables here, certain herbs here, certain fruits here. Likewise with the arrangement in the atmosphere of minerals. Now, verse 6, "When the Father driveth forth his worlds in the heavens, they gather a sufficient of all things. So also cometh it to pass that when a corporeal world is yet new and young, it is carried forth not by random, but purposely, in the region suited to it. Hence there is a time for Simu, a time for falling nebula, to bury deep the forests and Simuan beds, to provide coal and manure for a time thereafter. So is there a time when the earth passes a region in the firmament, when sand and oil are rained upon it and covered up, and gases bound and sealed up for the coming generations of men." So here Jehovah is showing you the order of his creation, how sand, oil is rained down from the heavens, what will be described in the Bible as brimstones and fire. But here this is just a natural cycle of occurrence, not no judgment of whatever the case may be, like, the Bible believing concept. But here this is just a general order of creation. Verse 7, "And man said, I am ashamed in thy sight, O Jehovah. I looked upward and said, Behold, the sky, it is nothing. Then I said, It is true, the corporeal worlds are made of condensed nebula. But I saw not the wisdom and glory of thy works. I locked thee up in coincidences and happenings. Thy unseen world hath become seen, the unreal hath become real." Verse 8, "O that I had been mindful of thee, O that I had not put thee afar, nor imagined laws and decrees. Teach thou me, O Jehovah, how was the beginning of man? How was it with the first of the living that thou brought forth?" Verse 9, "Jehovah said, Have I not declared myself in the past? In my works have I not provided thousands of years in advance, as I have shown systems in the corporeal worlds? Know, thou man, that system prevaileth in the firmament." Verse 10, "To the tree I gave life, to man I gave life and spirit also. And the spirit I made was separate from the corporeal life." Verse 11, "Out of Simu I made man, and man was but as a tree, but dwelling in Hak. And I called him Asu, or Adam." So here in this verse it tells you that man was made out of the substance called Simu, which was described earlier as being commingled atmosphere and corporeal substance, basically minerals. Dwelling in Hak. Hak was a name referred to the second half of the first age. Verse 12. I looked over the wide heavens that I made, and I saw countless millions of spirits of the dead that had lived and died on other corporeal worlds before the earth was made. Verse 13. I spoke in the firmament, and my voice reached to the utmost places, and there came an answer to the sound of my voice, myriads of angels, from the roadway in heaven, where the earth traveled. I said to them, Behold, a new world have I created. Come ye and enjoy it. Yea, ye shall learn from it how it was with other worlds in ages past. So here this verse describes how Jehovah calls myriads of angels from the heavens where the earth was traveling, and they were commanded to come to this new planet. So you have Asu, the Adamites, the first primitive man on the planet, and then you have Jehovah calling these angels to the planet. Verse 14. There alighting upon the new earth millions of angels from heaven, but many of them had never fulfilled a corporeal life, having died in infancy. And these angels comprehended not procreation nor corporeal life. So this verse describes how millions of angels alighted on the new planet. And many of these angels had not lived a corporeal life, so they had no knowledge of corporeal things, basically physical things, a fleshly life, being that they died in infancy on whatever native planet that they came from. It's like a baby who dies in infancy has no knowledge of the earth, but he has knowledge in the spirit because he's going to continue to develop in the spirit, although he died in infancy. This is the continuation of life. Even an infant is not just died and wasted away. They continue to grow in spirit. Your Bible won't tell you this, nor your Quran won't tell you this. No book will tell you this except the OAHSPE right now. Verse 15, and I said, Go and deliver Asu, Adam, the Adamites, or primitive man, Homo erectus, from darkness. For he shall also rise in spirit to inherit my Etherian world. So this verse, Jehovah tells his angels, who are lighting on the new earth, to go deliver Asu from darkness. Because Asu had no knowledge of self, no different than a child has no knowledge of self. He has to be taught everything from the parent. So the parent to these Asu or Adamites are the angels. When a child is born, goo goo gaga is his first speech until he is taught A, B, C, D, the alphabets, and then learn words, and then sentences and paragraphs, and then language. This is the order. Verse 16. And now was the earth in the later days of Simu, and the angels could readily take on corporeal bodies for themselves. Out of the elements of the earth, being minerals, clothe they themselves by force of their wills with flesh and bones, by the side of Asuans or Adamites or primitive man, Homo erectus, took they on corporeal forms. So here this verse showing you how they materialized by the side of the Asu or Adamites or Homo erectus with flesh and bone. Verse 17, and I said, Go ye forth and partake of all that is on the earth, but partake ye not of the tree of life, lest in that labor you become procreators and as if dead to the heavens whence ye came. So the commandment of not partaking of the tree of life was given to the angels, because if the angels interbred with the Asu or Adamites, Homo erectus, they would be bound through the blood. Verse 18, but those who had never learned corporeal things, being imperfect in wisdom, comprehended not Jehovah's words, and they dwelt with the Asuans or Adamites or Homo erectus, and were tempted, and partook of the fruit of the tree of life. And lo and behold, they saw their own nakedness. And there was born of the first race, out of the first race which was Asu or Homo erectus, a new race called man, which was your Homo sapien, thinking man. And Jehovah took the earth out of the travel of Simu, and the angels gave up their corporeal bodies. So after this event took place, after these angels interbred with primitive man and creating a new race, Homo sapien or thinking man, the angels were commanded to give up their corporeal bodies. So they returned back in spirit form. Verse 19, Jehovah said, Because ye have raised up those that shall be joint heirs in heaven, ye shall tread the earth with your feet, and walk by the sides of the newborn, being guardian angels over them, for they are of your own flesh and kin. So here you have angels who are lighting on this new planet, interbred with the Homo erectus, creating a new race, Homo sapien, being flesh and kin of the angels. So we are 50% primitive man and 50% angelical, This is the missing link to your human history. This is what Doran's theory couldn't figure out. The missing link was the angels. Verse 20. Fruit of your seed have I quickened with my spirit, and man shall come forth with the birthright to my Etherian worlds. Verse 21. As I have quickened the seed of the firstborn, which was Asu, Adamites, Homo erectus, so will I quicken all seeds to the end of the earth. And each and every man-child and woman-child born into life will I quicken with a new spirit, which shall proceed out of me at the time of conception. Neither will I give to any spirit of the higher or lower heavens power to enter a womb or a fetus of a womb and be born again. So the whole idea of reincarnation, you could throw that out the window. Talking about, yeah, you was once an ant, you was once a bug. That's nonsense. As the scriptures say, I will quicken thee with the new spirit at the time of conception. So every person born is a new spirit. They're not an old soul coming back. They're a new spirit. Anybody who speaks about reincarnation or you an old soul coming back, they are under the influence of spirits who have not learned to left the earth. They still bound to the earth. But the progress is to ascend after you die, not to come back. So anybody talk about returning or coming back, reincarnating, are angels of very low grade, bound angels. Verse 22, as the corporeal earth pass away, so shall pass away the first race, Asu, the Adamites, or Homo erectus, which true indeed you don't see them around now. But as I pass not away, so shall not pass away the spirit of man. And the spirit of man is immortal. It lives after we die, whether you believe it or not. And with that, I'd like to say peace and blessings and catch you on the next documentary, The Book of Jehovah, chapter 7 and 8. Shalom.
Remember Jah, he was the Maccabee.